I didn't want to wreck him. It just I had to stay on the track, and he didn't give me any room. It just, we both collided. That's the only thing I feel bad about. I'm more upset with Greg Biffle. He's the most unprofessional little scaredy cat I've ever seen in my life. He wouldn't even fight me like a man after. He needs a freaking whooping. I'm going to give it to him.
Good day, race fans, and welcome to the Intentional Wreck Podcast. The podcast made by race fans for race fans, from the casuals to the lifelong gearheads. My name is Jeff, and I'm here with my fellow hosts, Corey and Finn. And you can find us on YouTube and Spotify under the name Intentional Wreck. You can also find us on Twitter and TikTok under the handle at intwreckpod. Forgive me if I sound a little sluggish. I am a little more well-rested after the nap I took from Sunday's race, as it was a little bit of a snoozer. I know there's some people that may dispute that, but I can't be the only one that was finding myself potentially dozing off during that one. I personally am super psyched for Chris Bell. Thought that was a hell of a run, and it really boosted him in the point standings, and just was an all-around good day for him. And it's good as a Toyota fan, but yeah, it was definitely not the most exciting race, and I think we're gonna make sure. I want to give Finn the floor here at some point, because I know that this really brings home a point about Phoenix that he has been making repeatedly over and over again, when you consider the fact that this is supposed to be the track. It's emblematic of the championship. It's everything. So, Finn, what did you think of this past Sunday's race at Phoenix, and what do you think it means?
Well, I mean, just, for the folks that are coming back and noticing, wait, it's been a couple races since the pod has been back. We'll get to talking about the ass whooping that Larson put down on Vegas real quick. But in regards to Phoenix, there's always going to be two ways to look at this race. How was this race in and of itself, right? By itself, how did it feel? Is it any really different than the Loudon or the worldwide gateway races, where we just have, it's a very big short track, so you're carrying a lot of speed in the flat corners, and there's not really two lanes developing and things like that. How does that race? But then you always have to remember that even though those races end up being okay, fine, there was a moment or two. We're coming back here for the winner takes all. And do we want that kind of race in a winner takes all? And I think, NASCAR, they want to do that Game 7 moment. It's the last race. 4 cars for the championship. If you're going to do that, can we please at least do it at a track where people can fucking pass without having to require a 5-lap tire advantage? I mean, to say you couldn't pass would be bad. I mean, we saw Ty Gibbs get ran down late in a run because, and one of the things that we're talking about the race from kind of a technical standpoint, and Kevin Harvick, this is why I've enjoyed Kevin in the booth quite a bit, is he's doing that extra technical deep dive, and he talked a lot about how they'll run a softer brake pad on the right front, so it's a little bit grippier, and we saw that when you think back to, I know there was a lot of Noah Gragson wrecks, but a wreck last year where the brake rotor or the brake pad burst and he went flying up into the wall, right, at Worldwide Technology. But that's what we saw with Ty Gibbs, who such incredible short run speed, but a lot of wear and a lot of heat built up in that right front, and he was a little bit slower on the longer runs. And then, so, you saw Reddick kind of catch, and I like that. I like the idea, hey, you can build a long run car or a short run car, and maybe Phoenix is something where that shows. I mean, Chris Bell had a very, very strong car, won the race. He didn't qualify up front, so he had to have passed cars on the track, and he did. I believe on that last run, he drove back up from 12th to 1st. There were some weird situations with cautions that created an interesting race at the end because of the tire wear, right? Like you had Truex. I mean, you want to talk about a track where you can't pass. Truex took no tires and built a 3-second lead. The only person that had anything for him that had the car to catch him at all was Chris Bell on 4 tires and a lot of speed. So he had to run through the field. That was interesting. I admit, I like that. I like, even though it's not even on all tires, there's different speeds. That's fine. At least they could catch him and pass. Truex pit at the end of the near the end of the race actually because he knew he wasn't going to make it, or he knew that Bell was going to catch him, and he drove all the way back through the field on green flag. I think he might have finished in the top 10, maybe 11.
He finished 10.
Right.
Yeah, I think 11th. Yeah, yeah.
So what I always tell people is, even though the race coverage may have not given us a fun race, you have the option, NASCAR.com/drive. Find the guys that are movers. Find the guys that got quick cars and go watch them, okay? If you're watching a football game and it's not a fun one, okay? You're watching the game and you're like, man, Rams, Patriots, Super Bowl, right? If you're watching that game and you're going, man, nobody can pass, nobody's scoring points. Okay, so what are you watching? Well, that's because every rep you're watching the quarterbacks. You need to be watching Aaron Donald. You know what I'm saying? Like, hone in the boring ones, in the struggle ones, where there's not a lot of big, flashy action. You need to find the matchups that are where people are winning and admire that. And that's what I think you need to do in these races, especially like Phoenix. You should have had Chris Bell up. Early in the race, you should have had Eric Jones up. Ty Gibbs was able to track down and get the lead despite multiple restarts. Denny Hamlin, you get the whole 360 effect. It's like a 3D, 360 camera with Denny Hamlin on the restart. He completely lost it. So those are guys that you can watch. Truex had a really fast car, and that's how I get by those races. But yes, it did not give us the same feeling we left Atlanta with.
All credit to Martin Truex Jr. I just looked up; he actually finished 7th. But I think the thing about it is that races like that do not look impressive on TV.
Exactly.
Right. So like that I think is an important distinction because, and I'll guarantee you this: the 20 team was not bored; they were having a great time. Right. So
neither was the 5 team at Vegas.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, here's what you get, right? Chris Bell and Kyle Larson, who have won the last 2 races in fairly dominant fashion. We know at the end of Vegas, Reddick started catching Larson. He made a little bit of a race of it, but Larson was never really in that much danger at the end of Vegas. But the thing about it is that sometimes in racing, and this is something I've come to learn kind of as a newer fan, is like sometimes there's just going to be people that just go out and whoop everybody's ass for an entire day. And that's just kind of how it is, and that's what these were. Chris Bell was putting it on him at Phoenix, and aside from Tyler Reddick, Larson really had no competition after William Byron got the world's largest trash bag on the front of his car. So that was a crazy bit.
From what I heard,
was that?
I heard there was a beer.
Oh, had a beer can? Yeah, I did hear
all
that
right.
too.
It had speed, man.
Since we're on,
it's aero advantage.
The second most laps led in that race was Kyle Busch at 18. Kyle Larson led 181 laps.
Yeah.
But for me,
10 times more than the next closest person.
For me, the reason that race wasn't an amazing race was because of stages. Stages interrupted what made Tyler Reddick's car, because we're watching a race where a guy led 181 laps. He won both stages and the race, and we all can confidently say he did not have the strongest car.
And it's ironic that that's the case, right? That stages would have been something that hampered the competition towards the end, because the entire premise of wanting to add the stages would have been to insert that caution brake and insert that ability for other people to catch up, so you don't have... There were a lot of times, like back before stage racing, where you'd have somebody that was lapping the field, multiple times over and was uncatchable without their car, essentially their motor blowing up or something along those lines. And they were trying to level things out. And this is this proves that didn't necessarily do it. Now, there's been plenty of occasions where it has.
Right. But this,
but this wasn't it.
If stages didn't happen, if stages weren't a thing, Tyler Reddick runs away with that race.
Maybe, but here's the problem, is that when you put somebody like Larson out in the front and he's that good at aero blocking and just driving in his mirror, like, that's why I say, like, Reddick was never really challenging him at the end. He was getting close, but he never really had a shot to pass him, I don't think, because
Kyle Larson's too good, right? And I'm telling you, at the end of that Vegas race, I was like the Homer Simpson meme where he like backs into the bush and then comes back out with like a different shirt on. I was like the world's biggest Tyler Reddick fan at the end of that Vegas. Like, come on, Tyler, you got him.
Right.
But like, it was just never really, it was never really gonna be a thing.
Yeah,
His car was faster, but he couldn't get around the aero blocking.
He kind of was. I mean, I think he was just a couple laps short. I mean, at the end of the day, right, when you're that much faster, he was doing, and when you're watching, as you get closer, and what Corey's talking about the aero blocking, right, is they're taking your lane away from you. Vegas is a track that has multiple lanes, but if you've got your preferred lane, as long as Kyle can run exactly where you want to run, he's going to run up there, and you're not going to be able to get close. It used to be, Kevin Harvick was really good at this. You get right up on him, and you'd push him out into the corner. I would push the leader off the line way too high and make them get into the corner hotter than they should be. And that was easier to pass. It's not a dirty way of moving somebody, but it's basically like, oh, you want to block my lane? Sounds good. I'm just going to draft you deep into the corner. Vegas is not like, I mean, it's pretty high speed, but it's not as like banked to where it's like super off throttle versus something like Charlotte, where we saw Chase run down Larson. We've mentioned it a couple times in the 600, or when Denny was running down Larson at Darlington, where like the aero blocking wasn't something that he could do there. It's like you're kind of,
It's
and
also
Denny had a tire advantage, I think, in that situation. But I think,
well,
yeah, what's up?
yeah. Well, no, I was just gonna say that it just seems to, and this like exemplifies it as far as this season, clean air rules all on a lot of tracks. I mean, that's just kind of a given.
Right.
But we've seen now on multiple occasions that if Phoenix and Vegas have a distinct advantage to getting that clean air. Those particular tracks are very well suited for once you get to that front, your ability to build the gap is huge compared to some of the other tracks that they'll run. I'm not sure of the technical aspects of that so much, but I mean, Larson just kind of showed that it wasn't just that like Larson got out front and eventually made his way out. You could see the difference pretty like within a couple of laps. It grew pretty substantially.
I mean, again, it wasn't the best race. Again, it's hard. We can't have the Atlanta every week. I felt like it was solid. Again, the fact that we walked away going, wow, the best car didn't win that race. He was running him down. I think the reason he couldn't pass him at the end of the stages was because of stages. Like, the stages do not give benefit to true long-run cars, right? And Tyler had a way better car. And he was getting close to Kyle near the end of the race. And it's just one of those things that's just like, all right, cool. It's getting hot. He's wearing a lot of tire. Back up, let him cool. Because he's forcing Kyle to use a lot more tire by defending him. So he's just like, make him put the pressure on him, make him worse, save my tire, and the pass will be easy. He would have been able to pass him, I am sure. The whole aero thing on these tracks is more so it takes more laps to pass somebody, not so much that you can't pass, versus what we are seeing on the short track package, which is since these tracks don't have two lanes, you can't pass anybody. You can't. Right. And the shifting takes away a lot of the advantages. I didn't get a look at who all was shifting too much yesterday. Again, there was more passing yesterday. People were able to kind of catch and pass, but it wasn't a necessarily fun one. Here's another fun fact for you for Phoenix. One non-Toyota led laps. Here's the lap led totals. Chris Bell led 50. Ty Gibbs led 57. Truex 55. Reddick 68. Hamlin 68. Only one other driver led laps on this race. They led 14 laps. Can you guess?
Noah Gragson?
Nope.
Busher?
Nope. It is a Ford. Todd Gilliland was the only non-Toyota.
Boy.
That's your dude, man.
He finished 17th.
Number one Gilliland fan.
So to that point, though, I'm telling you right now, if I'm Chevy, I'm nervous, right? They've got 3 out of the first, and I get that I'm the resident Chevy hater, right? Okay, fine. I hate Chevy, but they won 3 out of the first 4 races. That's awesome. But if they want any chance at winning a championship the way that they looked yesterday, they better have all 4 Chevys in the Final Four because they're not beating Toyotas and Fords at Phoenix. They're just not.
Right. And this is
I get that Ross won the championship race last year. Sure, that's great. But like they were non-existent yesterday, pretty much.
Right.
You know, so
And I had this as a point for later, but there's plenty to talk about on who's on the upswing. Very impressive start to the season by Trackhouse. I get that they've only got 2 cars. Well, they've got Zane Smith, right? But obviously Daniel's already in the playoffs. Ross goes second. Was that second at Vegas or third at Vegas?
uno
I
momento.
think he
I
ended
shall
up a
pull it up.
top 5, and then he
Chastain was 4th place at Las Vegas.
right, and then he turns around and ended up getting 6th. He got passed by Blaney at the last second um, at the Phoenix race. But Ross looks really, really strong at the tracks that matter, and that's good because I felt like he faded in speed for a little bit. What did he win last year outside of Phoenix? Did he win worldwide WWT? I felt like he only won like 1 race last year, and he didn't really look the same as maybe he had before the year before. But no, I felt like he's off to a really strong start. Obviously, Kyle Larson is Kyle Larson, but you're right. At the end of the day, this was our first litmus test of who can win a
He
championship.
won Nashville last year.
Got you. And right now,
I mean, right now,
Toyota.
as far as like that particular race, when you hone in on that, for sure. But at the same time, from a points perspective and a playoff perspective, and some of those factors to take into account, the top is all bow ties and Toyotas as far as points are concerned. There are 2 Fords in the top 15 from a points.
Oh yeah,
right,
Ford's,
but
Ford's
that,
a
I
cliche.
mean, Logano is going to be there. We know Logano is going to be a playoff driver. That's not a concern for me. But he had a shit day yesterday.
He's had a shitty month, bro.
Yeah,
He's not doing anything.
And that's the downside of super speedway. 2 of the 4 races we've had being the super speedways. It's just that anything can happen mentality. I will say this though: there's a couple fast forwards. Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski both finished top 5 in the Phoenix race.
Yeah,
2nd and 4th respectively. I mean, we've talked about them jumping up. You know what? The Fords across the board have had a little bit of speed. McDowell with a top 10 yesterday. Briscoe finishes 9th yesterday. And then, of course, I have some thoughts here. Corey, first, your thought on Briscoe. We didn't get to chat during the race. So how are you feeling so far about the SHR boys, and maybe in particular, the best performing SHR driver, Noah Gragson?
Noah Gragson. Right. Yeah, it's been interesting to watch so far. First of all, I feel like the 14, like they have put all the cylinders in the car for all 4 races, and that is a very positive upgrade. We've brought the engines, there's tires, like there is a race team going on for the 14 this year, and that's a very positive improvement. But yeah, Noah Gragson is killing it, man. Like I did not foresee this level of I think he was like 12th at Vegas or something like that, and then I think he was 6th yesterday or something. And man, he looks great. He looks great. His car was ugly as sin. But
six
man,
at Vegas.
it was fast.
It looked
though.
like the Nickelodeon slime car. It's what
that car was ugly as hell.
Bring it back, dude. So here's my thing. Noah is he's racing like a veteran, and that's good, right? He doesn't have race. He's not competing for the lead right now. But I like.
Well, he's an SHR driver. He's not going
to start putting it in. Briscoe though. They're bringing. I'm going to say this. They're bringing cars that have speed. My issue is because Briscoe has qualified really well. He qualified. Let's do the quick math. I think he qualified 6th at Vegas, despite finishing 21st. And then it looks like he finished 8th. So yeah, 2 top 10 qualifying runs on the first non-super speedway race. That's solid. My problem is they're not bringing a lot of race speed. He's just kind of getting marred in traffic a little bit and dealing with that. I was really hoping, especially at Vegas, I was like, dude, and he got up there and led some laps. I was like, hell yeah, 6 is here to, or the 14's here to ball. Not quite there yet, but
it's way better than it was last year. Last year was an embarrassment.
Right now, it's looking like they just need to nail the setup, and then they're going to win themselves a race. For sure. So, but right now, I mean, again, you made a point. Shit, the bow ties are in the playoffs in terms of guaranteeing spots.
Sure.
Right now, I mean, if you had to put
I'll
your
hot
money
take
on
you
it,
right
man.
now.
Huh? Christopher Bell is your championship favorite today.
Christopher Bell is your championship favorite today.
I would say Tyler Reddick. I would say Tyler Reddick. I feel like
It's definitely a Toyota.
but
It's
I'm-
definitely a Toyota.
yeah. Both of those guys are very similar breeds of driver.
Yeah.
They can really hang on those tracks, and at the end of the day, I'll give you Bell because Bell was dominating Phoenix when he lost the
Yes.
tire.
Yeah.
Was it last year? or
His
the year
brakes blew up in the championship race, or he's probably your champion last year.
Right. And the pit
Yeah.
and the year before.
Yeah.
with the
2
bad
years
pit
in a
stop.
row, he got screwed in the championship race. Yeah.
So, yeah, look at me. I mean, I'm a Toyota guy now, so like what am I doing? Like I'm
Right.
hyped.
Camry guy.
I'm
Finn.
hyped,
Team Toyota.
Team
Camry
Toyota,
guy.
Jimmy Jam, boom.
That's right.
So,
Welcome.
yeah, all right, so this was our first look at the short track package, right? And I know we're not plussed. We're not too happy by that. I mean, the really only look we've gotten was the Clash and this. And this is a weird one because it's such high speed. I'm very curious to see. I mean, in the next couple races, we've got Bristol, Coda, Richmond. And you guys are going to be there. I'm very interested to hear what happened because remember when we went, there hasn't been much passing. Are you guys sitting in turn 1 and 2 this year?
We don't have our tickets yet.
Okay, go 3 and
So
4
out
this year,
there,
'cause
if anyone
that's
wants
where-
to send us some tickets,
go
let's talk.
go to 3 and 4
if any
this
of
year.
the 10 of you that
I'm
see this,
curious because remember last year? Remember it was Briscoe and Stenhouse. They were running that high line in 1 and 2.
High line, yeah.
I felt like I saw no passing. Go sit in 3 and 4 this year, and let me know how the passing looks. Because you guys
We'll
were
see.
1 and 2 last year when you did the suite, right?
Well,
yeah,
don't,
it was
don't
right at
never
the,
hashtag
the
never
apex
again.
of
Never
one and
again.
two, but
No sweet seats.
Never again.
yeah,
Uh,
it was. Yeah, well, I mean, and then again, like for that spring race, or no, that summer race in particular, that was a Larson win. No, that was a Busher win.
Busher.
yeah,
Busher
you
won
guys
that
saw the
race.
Busher win.
But yeah, I mean, I remember Larson had a decent run that day. Denny had a halfway decent run, but they juice him for Richmond. It
Now-
just happens that way.
Now the
and
Richmond
I'm
races
not mad
we've
about it.
gone to. I mean, Hamlin ran through. Remember, Hamlin ran back from 10th all the way through. The Toyotas ran well there.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a Toyota
Yeah.
race. But I'm
Oh,
curious.
the Richmond Spring Race. It's the Toyota race, so you
Well,
got
that's the other.
that
yeah.
that
The
ends
other
up
nice
being
thing
the
is-
case.
Both of them are night races again, so it doesn't really matter where we sit in terms of sun in your face and all that kind of stuff. Which, by the way, calling my shot now, 'cause since we don't have another episode before that, it will be cold. I will bet you right now, Finn, it will be sub 60 degrees. Which,
be
when you're
cold, but it's not
outside in
gonna feel
Virginia
cold.
in March and it's 57 degrees for the entire night and it's dark out, guess what? It's cold.
You're gonna be fine. All right, just get some of Jeff's shrimp in you.
I'll be wearing a hoodie.
All right, get you a
Don't
nice
worry.
Chase Briscoe merch hauler hoodie
Yes,
on sale.
I got one.
Yeah,
I mean, I will say this. Here's somebody that I'm interested in seeing at Richmond to see if he can get a win and lock himself into his first playoffs. He was extremely fast at the Clash. I know that doesn't matter, but it's the only other race we've had on this package. He looked extremely fast yesterday. Ty Gibbs, I think he's going to win one of these short track races. I think there's something that
be.
team has gotten figured out on that package. Again, I know
are
it's
you counting him out for Bristol?
Well, Bristol doesn't run that package.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, Bristol runs if I'm not mistaken, the intermediate track. Dover does as well. So they don't get the short break package that
I always get confused with that. But all right, yeah,
it's
you're
it's
right.
because they're
Okay.
so banked, right?
Yeah,
So that's and I think that might be another Bush or RFK Busher type stuff. They tend to do extremely well at Bristol. Going to be interesting because it's not Bristol dirt. It's also going to be interesting to see because we talked about it on the last episode, right? Like this is like people are going to go there to build a setup for the playoff race or
Right.
the
And it's a
either-
night race.
Right. So like, hey,
Yeah.
what kind of, what can we do versus before, which is you unload and it's the playoff race and you got to be careful. Maybe we see more swings and we see more intensity at Bristol versus the dirt race, which I know me and Corey are pained that's gone. But it is, but no, Gibbs is somebody I'm expecting. Because again, the package isn't perfect for everybody racing. But that car
Right.
certainly has got something figured out, and the Toyota certainly got something figured out, and they're always fast at
Yeah.
similar tracks. So I'm interested in there. Some other news in the series, though. Did you watch the Xfinity race at all, guys? SVG finished 6th.
I did not. I saw he raced well. I saw a couple of highlights of him just barely holding on to it while he was wheeling it around the corner a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was on the Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour this week, and they talked a little bit about racing, and he was talking about entry into the corner and like having to send it into the corner at such high speeds and how the car loads. And he was talking a lot about just how different it is when somebody's got air on you or you don't have air. And it was a very interesting talk. If you got time, I highly recommend peeping that conversation. And they spoke about it early, so you don't have to sit through the. It's not like if Clint
Right.
interviewed SVG, which is just going to be a bunch of memes and jokes for an hour. They get right
Right.
to it. But he finished sixth, and I think it's really coming around. I mean, we got Coda on the map, and then that is going to be SVG
I can't wait.
territory. I mean, all
Yeah.
eyes on him. In fact, I was thinking about watching the Chicago street race point of view from him again. We might have to do that one day here soon. Just sit down and watch that because they still have it on YouTube, I believe, and it was sick.
I'm super looking forward to these next three though.
Yeah.
For varying reasons. Obviously, Jeff and I are going to Richmond, but Bristol's going to be super interesting. I've never seen the Bristol Spring Night Race, right? Because ever since I've been watching, it's been a dirt race.
Right.
So this will be my first. Spring Bristol Night Race, which I'm told is that's like the creme de la creme, right? You want to see that race. Obviously, SVG's running the Cup Series at Coda. Can't wait to see the first time he sends it into turn one and that shit show that is gridlock in turn one, and obviously Jeff and I'll be at Richmond. So yeah, I think the next three are gonna be super fun.
Jeff, next three races, who are you feeling good about? Like,
Well, for Bristol in particular, like this to me feels this is in Larson territory, this is in Busher territory. This is in that realm for me. I mean, I think there's a high potential we see a Ford take Bristol. I would love to see Denny take Bristol, but that's obvious. But I mean, Bell races there halfway decent. Like I said, Busher does. There's no more Harvick there to contend with, who would typically contend pretty well at Richmond. Not Richmond, at Bristol historically. So, those are some of the ones that I'm going to watch. I kind of want to see if Penske takes a step forward in this case without having the dirt on the track at this point. Like, do we see Logano, make a move at this point? Because, I mean, yeah, he got his dirt win, but that wasn't something that anybody expected by any stretch of the imagination when it initially happened. We go to Coda. I mean, obviously at that point, all eyes are on the road race guys, right? Like, so obviously eyes are going to be on Chase Elliott. I mean, it's obvious SVG's definitely running that race in a cup car, right?
He's running the cup.
Yeah.
Yes.
So eyes will be on SVG. Like, you're going to want to see what Reddick does at that track. See, to me, those are the main three that I want to see at Coda this year, because especially Chase Elliott, because the guy is, I mean, he's supposed to have been NASCAR's road king.
Right.
And for the last few years, it's been a dud for him.
Now,
we haven't
for what
seen
it's
him do
worth, his finishes are still very high, right?
Sure.
He still passes guys at a high clip, but you're right. He's missing what made Chase that force, which is just like, all right, who's finishing second this week, right?
Yeah.
But I think he would be in contention. I mean, Bowman has finished top 5 the last 2 races at Coda. So I'm very interested. And then Chastain is always a wrecking ball / threat at that race. AJ Allmendinger. And then, of course, you talk about the 4 teams that are seeing improvement. The new, number 2 Ford team in Front Row Motorsports. And they've got McDowell, who went and dominated.
Out of nowhere.
Right.
Out of
McDowell's
nowhere.
been having a decent run this year, all things
Yes.
considered. I mean,
Both of them have.
Right. That's what I'm saying is, like, for last year, we were all going, holy crap, McDowell's coming in here and doing something. And now this year, we're actually going to have some conversations. It may be time to talk about Michael McDowell. Is that going to happen now?
I'm genuinely excited.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm thinking for Bristol is like, McDowell is the kind of guy that I could see jumping up and grabbing this, a veteran guy, because they haven't run this race in a while, right? So like Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, McDowell, someone like that who hasn't really run well yet this year. By the way, since we were talking about Chase Elliott, I just want to point out he has not won a race since October 2nd of 2022. But I digress. I think we'll see
a Dega race,
what's that?
Right?
That was Talladega. Yep. So yeah, we're like 18 months or so since the last time that Mr. Chase Elliott, everybody's favorite, won a race. Anyway, but yeah, I think we're gonna see a veteran at Bristol, and I think McDowell, like, why not? Why not McDowell? The way that they've been running all year so far, the man's got he's got a pole. He's got his first career pole this year. He's got 2 races on the front row in qualifying. Why not? I mean, I get this is a different package, but still, like, front row's been massively impressive so far.
I mean, he had
And correction for what Corey had been saying for the Bristol race. This is the Bristol day race. So
Is it
the
day?
night race comes in the summer. Yeah. This one's at 3:30.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a night
Spring
race.
race is in the day. The night race is in the summer.
Talking out of my ass.
you're good. I mean, McDowell's been solid, right? They seem to have speed at the super speedways. Had a lackluster day, but he did at Vegas, but finished top 10 in Phoenix. Yeah, I mean, he's quick. He's a solid driver, right? And then the road courses are going to make this interesting. And I talk a lot about the golden days of NASCAR and things like that, but the road course talent that we currently have in NASCAR, I enjoy it a lot more. And then you throw in the wild card that is SVG, and it's going to make, and that is going to be a thing. Again, they're not going to be able to capture the race well on the screen outside of like the late battles. You've got to find a guy that you want to watch and just watch that person carve the field up and drive through the field. Pay attention to those things.
Tyler Reddick and Coda, I could see.
Dude, I mean, his
he's had nasty
Suarez.
cars every week.
Dude.
Or Suarez, yeah.
You
There's
remember
another
last year, right?
consideration.
Well, he had an extra freaking pit, and he ran back through all the way around and caught the field again.
Exactly.
One of the most, I mean, if it wasn't for what we saw out of SVG, I would say that one might be one of the most dominating performances of the year, if not just a straight up most dominating performance, right?
Well, that's the other thing let's look at, to your point about the road racers now compared to, back in the glory days, so to speak. Like, I would say, like, we have the top end talent on road courses now. It makes it that much more entertaining because you, like, right now, off the top of your head, you can name at least 5 guys. Like, you're restricting yourself at that point. That could any other race, and then it would be more. So
right. I mean, even Byron won a road course race last year. So
yeah,
there's so many things that could occur. So I got a little triggered this week. Well, it's technically last week and throughout, and I want to hear your thoughts to it. So Raja Karuth wins
yeah, hell yeah,
the Vegas race,
the MV baby
from the pole.
Truck race.
From the pole, shout out to him. He got full sponsorship through HendrickCars.com, and it looks like he's on his way to being a future Hendrick Motorsports driver for sure. Now he's very young, and that is just one truck win, right? It is awesome for him, awesome for diversity in our sport, right? Because I believe he came up through the Diversity Drivers Program. I know his mentor is Kyle Larson.
He did.
DC guy, so even though he's a Chevy guy, Corey has a soft spot in his heart a little bit.
Oh yeah, he's the only Chevy guy.
Yeah.
And
he's the only Chevy guy I root for.
I was super stoked. I was like, dope. I've watched Raja on iRacing. He's fun to watch on Twitch. Super dope. And then I'm on TikTok and I see a thing and I open it up and I go, and it says, Alex Bowman better watch out. Raja Karuth's going to have his ride in a year. And that seems to be a sentiment that a lot of people think.
Bro, you will be 6 to midnight if Raja Karuth ends up in the 48, buddy. That's like, that would be like, you will be doing cartwheels. I truly believe that if Raja Karuth ends up there instead of Bowman.
Instead of who?
I'm here for it. Why not? But like, you as a 48 fan, right?
What do you mean?
I know you.
Like, happy?
You'd be so pumped, dude.
No,
You'd be
I don't
so
know.
pumped.
So this is what I think. I like Bowman. The reason I'm still a 48 fan is not because it's the 48 car. For example, if they would have put Keselowski in that car, I would be a Chase Briscoe fan. Not that I don't like Keselowski, right? I mean, I'm a Detroit Lions fan. He's a Detroit guy. I got in an argument with his brother on Twitter about the Lions, and I had no idea who I was arguing with. And then I realized, oh, shit, I looked at his Twitter because I was going to go talk shit to him, and it was like spotter of the because when people like your reply, like the tweet that you replied to, you get notifications, and it was spamming. So many people were liking, and I was like, why is this one Lions conversation so big? Why are so many people liking this thing? I don't have a following. And then I looked at him, and I was like, oh, this is Brad Keselowski's brother. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I don't know. But anyways, he's a funny guy. It wasn't like an argument, but no, like I didn't want to stay with the 48 car just because it was the 48 car. It was a real bit. And then when they put Bowman in there, I really like Bowman. You want to talk about the story? This isn't a guy that came for money. He used to drive shit cans for, I think it was like Tommy something racing. I don't know, Tommy Johnson racing. He used to drive the Dr. Pepper shit can car for Brad Keselowski racing. He gets brought on to be I don't know if you know Alex Bowman's story, but just to break it down, he becomes the sim rig driver for Hendrick Motorsports, helping out with setups and stuff like that. He gets such a good reputation with the team and stuff that then Junior gets hurt. And they need somebody to split the races with Jeff Gordon. Junior advocates for Bowman, and the rest is history. I really like that.
Right.
I think that he's a really good, very humor. He's got the most personality of any driver at Hendrick Motorsports. That's not saying much.
Well, that's not hard though.
I think Corey has more personality.
An empty
than
beer can has more personality than those three guys.
But I like that, and I think he can do well. And I do admit that we are entering hot seat territory for the 48. But I look at the performances the 9 is chugging out, and something tells me it's a little bit more than the driver in the seat.
Yeah,
that's
the
what
different. They're hot. The heat of their seats is not even comparable though.
So, well, no,
between the 9 and
Chase
the 48.
Elliott will be in
Right.
the 9 forever, like
Right.
just
Yes.
bar none. Forget
Right.
that, right? But my
Right.
concern is like I can't. I'm not ready to be like Bowman's not a talented driver. He's not, right? I got a big argument talking about Corey LaJoie the other day. Somebody said he was a B class driver in C tier equipment. I said no, he's C tier driver at best. I think Bowman is a very talented driver. My issue is he's not good enough at enough tracks. Now, if Bowman were to play out his contract the next 3 years, right, and we're not looking at a guy who's making the round of 8, okay? If you're not
Right.
making round of 8 in Hendrick gear, I admit it's time to go. Okay?
Yep.
I get it. All right. Jeff will laugh at this one. I'm basically the fan of Casey Mears of the early 2005 or like Hendrick teams. There's a guy named Casey Mears. He used to drive the 42 for Target. I think his dad has money. He's a Nepo driver. He got brought over from his team to drive the 25 for Hendrick Motorsports and sucked it up every single week while the rest of the guys were dominating. So, and that's kind of what we're at now, right? We're kind of, I get it. He's not the best. But if he's not getting round of 8 and he finishes out his current contract, yeah, if they want to go somewhere else, I'm okay with that. Will I stay with the 48? That all depends on how Legacy is, right? Because my personal fanship goes to Jimmy Johnson and what they've got. I would love to see Legacy. So if he's still doing racing, Legacy's doing stuff, they've got some young prospects, cool. If they put somebody I like in the 48, I do like Raja, and I would continue to cheer for the 48 if he was in the seat.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'm ready like in the next 2 years. And then again, Raja's not ready. I want to see him get in a JRM car.
Right.
Right? If there's any young driver that is ready right now for a big time ride, it's Carson Hocevar. Have you seen what that kid's been doing?
Yeah, he's killing it.
Yeah, and he's making
Spire has been on the come up too.
just
Like
Carson.
as a program.
Just Hocevar. Right. Well, they
Roger
got
just
more
won a
money
truck
this year.
race in Spire equipment. I get that it's a Hendrick car. It just says Spire on it. I get all that. But Roger's a Spire guy.
Right.
Well,
in
it's
the lower
undeniable.
series, the Spire guys are Hendrick cars, right? Like that
Right,
for the
yes.
most part. But in the upper series, they just had the partnership and alliance. And I'm speaking out of my ass here, right? I don't truly know
Right.
the things.
Right.
But Corey LaJoie is not driving around a Hendrick car. He's not driving around a Hendrick B car. Okay.
Right.
He's driving around a C tier car. Maybe high B tier on his best tracks where they put a lot of money towards it. But Corey LaJoie, he was running what? Top 4, top 5, top 10 a bit at Vegas, but ran out of talent. Carson Hocevar was flying through the pack at Phoenix. He looked extremely quick. They ended up having a bad. I had him up on the screen, and they had a bad pit stop during the first pit cycle, and that put him at the rear of the field. I don't know if it was something with the tire or whatever. He didn't get contact, and then they were trying to drive up through the field. And then I don't know if you guys remember, it was either the first or second stage. A bunch of guys stayed out real long. Kyle Busch stayed out real long. Todd Gilliland stayed out real long, just hoping for some kind of caution through the pit cycle. Hocevar was one of those guys. Didn't work out for him, so I don't think he ended up having an amazing day. It looks like he finished 15th. But he qualified 10th, finished 15th, and had a fairly quick car. Meanwhile, Corey LaJoy, oh yeah, he got caught up in that accident. So, but I mean, back-to-back accidents. I don't want to judge somebody too much on that, but when you're driving around, like they said about Austin Dillon, when you qualify like shit and you're stuck in the back at tracks like this,
Good luck.
qualify better.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
He was 8 laps down at one point at Phoenix. Austin
Yeah,
Dillon.
I think it was just from I think it was just from all that the damage he took. I think it was a big hit where somebody got thrown up. I think it might have been the Logano wreck. But Logano's been big yikes. Did not look well at all. I mean, again, those are the future of Chevy in my mind, right? If you're watching the Xfinity Series races, the JRM guys are not looking good. Sammy Smith came over from Joe Gibbs to the 8 for Junior Motorsports, not looking good. Brandon Jones, not looking good. Sam Mayer, it's early, but he's probably the most prospect one. Allgaier was leading at Phoenix and wrecked. He lost the right front and went to the wall, in case you guys were watching that one. Right now, there's not a whole lot of up-and-coming Chevy guys. I think the top true Chevy prospects are SVG, Zane Smith, and Hocevar. Carruth's got some, it's gonna take some time, and I'm excited that he's got funding and he looks like a talented driver. More laps up front. If he keeps winning races, that's good. But did you know that Rajah Carruth has more wins in the NASCAR's top 3 series than Corey LaJoy does?
Shocker.
And did I propose this to you? And I said, like, would you rather drive around in like 25th in the Cup Series, or would you rather?
Yeah,
go
we
down...
did talk about that.
And
I do remember that. I think that was the one of the beginning season topics when we first kicked everything out.
So has your mind? I think one of you guys said I'd rather be in the Cup Series.
That was Corey.
Do you feel the same? Looking at what these like, all right, how many times have you heard a single good thing about Harrison Burton this year?
0.
Nothing.
Ever. Not this year.
Dude,
Never.
if you would have told me that Harrison Burton didn't show up to race yesterday and the 21 car wasn't there, I would have believed you. I'd be like, oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, did he run yesterday?
He did. A couple laps down on speed.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's that entire question. It's interesting to kind of mull it over, right? Because if you make your way through the ranks and you have the consistent year in the trucks, get a bump up into Xfinity and get a consistent year or two of like steadily getting wins and like really solidifying yourself somewhere and basically setting yourself up to be in prime equipment by the time you get to the Cup Series. I may lean in that direction now, really just having some more time to think it over. I mean, the concept of you want the chance to go and be at the top level totally makes sense. I get it. I think there's valid points on both ends of that. But this is one of those circumstances where, like, just for me, I'm a progression guy. I'm a progress.
Well,
I'm a process guy. So I like the idea of seeing that. I mean, because I was one of the people who was saying that, like, you guys were completely right on this, and I was back. I thought Gibbs was going to be another year down in Xfinity before he made his way up to Cup, and I was dead wrong on that. But that's mostly just, being overcautious on my end. That's kind of where I sit on something like that. But, I think, see that the sport fluctuates on those positions.
I think how you get there is an important part of that equation as well, right? Because Harrison Burton is an interesting example because everyone knows why Harrison Burton is in that car. It's because his last name is Burton, right? Like that's what it is. So like, I'm not as versed in all the drivers as you guys are, but somebody like Chris Buescher, right? Like he doesn't, as far as I know, he has no real background in racing. I don't know. I've never heard that name anywhere else in NASCAR circles, right? But like, yes, he found his way into a better car than Harrison Burton, but like that guy earned it, right? So like, if you're telling me I'm not a Nepo guy, then I'm not putting down the Nepo people. Live your life. It's fine. I'm not mad at you. But like, I wouldn't, if I was a Nepo guy, I'd want to prove it in the lower series. If I'm not, and I'm Buescher or Chastain or like one of these other like blue collar type guys that just kind of works their way up, Yeah, sign me up for the Cup Series as quickly as
Yeah, give me
possible.
the bigger check.
Yes.
That's the other that's the other factor that comes in, right? Is like usually you're reaching for that bigger check
Right.
when you get that chance, and that's completely understandable. You may not have the time or the standing for like that waiting. You may not
Right.
have that much time to wait
Sure.
for somebody to write that check for you. So
No,
that's
yeah.
yeah,
If my
completely
grandfather
understandable.
was Joe Gibbs
Right.
and I'm
Yes.
just killing it in the Xfinity series,
Yes.
like Ty Gibbs did the Nepo thing the right way. And I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong, really. I'm just saying Ty Gibbs is going to kick all of their asses for 20 years. Like that's what we were seeing the beginning of.
Yeah,
That guy's going to be a problem for a long time.
and I'm
Step
not
one, drive car really well. Step
Right.
two,
Right.
have grandfather who owns race team.
Who is Joe Gibbs?
Step three, profit. Yes, I
Right.
mean I get it.
right. So this is how I feel about the Nepo kids, right? Because the Cindrics and the Burtons and,
Yeah.
and pretty much anybody that kind of got it, because of it. But my thing is, I have a lot of respect for anybody who goes in the race car.
Yes.
This Nepo, you talk about that in like the money world and like, all the people that are selling courses on TikTok of how to manage their business. And step one is have daddy give you 4 million. How to save money in 2024, have grandma pay your rent.
Right.
Random things like that. I get it. But that's not the case here. And just to be clear, we talk about the Nepo thing and we joke and whatever. Austin Dillon, right? We talk about him a lot in a negative light and say that he only's there because of that. And you know what? If he wasn't in the 3 car, probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. He could probably ride around in 17th all day long and nobody would care. But he's in the 3. You put that on yourself. But my point is
Right.
this. It is 110 degrees in these these cars. And you're taking G's and you have to know how to drive. And if we believe in our heart of hearts that that driving a stock car at 200 miles an hour into the corner at Atlanta or 190 in Atlanta in a pack racing or throwing it into the corner at Charlotte at 193, 194, and then driving around if we believe that it's truly a difficult and challenging and high level sport, then the fact that these guys are even running top 10s in any kind of equipment, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's only so much money can buy you before it's like, hey, you have to do it. And I'm not mad at these guys taking advantage of their background and they're growing up. And sometimes we go, well, why don't they do something else? No. All this kid has known since he was a child is NASCAR racing.
But here's the thing, right? But the question you're posing is not whether it's hard.
Right.
It's what is the question is about the opportunity.
So
if you had the opportunity to be in the Cup Series, would you take that versus an opportunity in this? And the opportunities are different for those guys. I don't think anyone's disputing that.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. It's just the way it shook out, right? But like personally, right, as having a semi blue collar life myself, you know what I mean? Like in my family, but that's how I would see myself doing it, right? If I could do the Cup Series that way, I would do that. If I was quote unquote had an easier path, had an opportunity because of the kind of guy I am, I'm not saying I'm better than them or anything like that, but like I would do what Ty Gibbs did, which was I'm not going to the Cup Series until I kick all of their asses in the Xfinity Series.
Right.
Like
and
that's the right way.
Won himself a ton of races. I mean, he
Yes.
went from ARCA to Xfinity.
Yes.
And I think he may have won like one of his first 2 Xfinity starts or looked disgustingly fast. And another thing too is like, again, you have to, the most important thing, if you do not have sponsor backing money, is to be something that sponsors deem worthy of throwing money at, right? Ty Gibbs, obviously he's got his grandfather, right? But you got other dudes that have alliances and sponsorships, that their personal brand or, like Chase Briscoe and Ford loves him and things like that. That if you can
Mahindra.
bring that to the table, Noah Gragson brings money to the table. He doesn't have a dad in racing, as far as I think his dad's in jail. But there's some money there and things like that. Like, yes, you can bring those things to the table. But if you're just kind of like this, you mentioned Buescher. Buescher has an Xfinity Series championship. Daniel Suarez has an Xfinity Series championship, right? These are guys that, like, they are there. I mean, maybe Daniel Suarez is very marketable, right, with his international status and things like that. But really, those guys are where they are because they worked their way up. And they won at the lower levels, right? Chase Briscoe is a guy who won 9 races. I think it was 9 races in a single Xfinity season. You want to see arguably, he didn't win. I don't even think he won the championship. But Chase Briscoe
I
had
don't
one of
think
the
so
most dominating Xfinity Series championships during that COVID year that I have ever seen. He smoked the field. I mean, if you ever feel bad, just go watch one. I'll pull them up. I'll show you all the wins, and you can just go watch that. And you'll go, what is Finn talking about? And you're going to see Austin Cindric, you're going to see Gibbs, and you're going to see Denny coming down, and you're going to see Byron and Larson, and you're just going to see the 98 car take on freaking Kyle Busch at Darlington, 1v1 for the win after the most traumatic event of his life, personally. Like, you know, those guys worked their way up, and they maintained themselves to be relevant. I mean, Barry is a guy that was struggling to get
Journeyman.
sponsorship.
Yeah.
I mean, best of friends with Junior. Couldn't get a full-time ride because he couldn't get sponsorship, and now he's in the 4? How?
Yeah.
Right?
Sonny D.
Why is he in the 4? Because
Right.
he went to the lower series. He won some races. Obviously, marketability with Junior, right? The podcast helped for sure, I imagine, in some way. And then the opportunity, yes, he stepped up to drive the 9 car, but he didn't step up to drive. He wasn't exactly volunteering when Cody Ware had his issues, and they had to go get
No.
Newman. It was other people that were like, oh shit, we should, all right, who we got to find for this shitbox seat, right?
Yeah.
So that I think again, you're absolutely right. Your situation should dictate whether or not you're ready to go up or not. Now you mentioned Gibbs, Jeff, going up. I thought it made sense to rush Gibbs, and it made sense to rush Briscoe up. Rush is subjective for Briscoe. He's not the youngest guy, right? Because of the car change. It made more sense to get Ty Gibbs in the next gen car ASAP, especially with the 18 leaving,
Right.
than it would to stay back in Xfinity, dominate, but the car drive too differently. And I think that's why, especially because one of Ty Gibbs' strengths is his road course racing background. And with just how different the car is, I think if they wanted to make him a contender in the window that they want to have him as a contender, they deem him a contender, I think that is what made the most sense. So, and I can't remember, was the decision to move him up prior to his father's passing?
I don't remember.
I have to check.
I'll tell you this much: he's a contender today.
I mean, he looks
right
good.
now. He's a contender.
Yeah, he's starting to break out, and all the toy. I mean, and here's another thing: the fans nowadays, they really don't give a shit about drivers that work their way up the hard way.
No.
I'm not gonna lie, they don't, because there's one driver who did it. He doesn't come from money. Actually, there's 2 drivers. There's one now, and there's one in the past. These drivers did not come from money. They worked their way up. They drove in the low series. They tested themselves out. They worked their way up. They humbled themselves and took rides in different areas that, maybe weren't ready. And they're not appreciated at all. And they are like the fundamental, like what you want of like a grassroots racer. One is Bubba Wallace, right? Bubba didn't come from money. And Bubba did not. I mean, it's obviously if you joined during the 2020 season, Bubba did not make it through the ranks because he was a black driver. Bubba was smoking people in ARCA, okay? And the second driver that got no respect despite growing up, working all the way through, setting records, being an absurd talent in racing, was Danica Patrick. She got no respect for everything that she did up through IndyCar and then earning this Xfinity. And she didn't come straight to Cup. She went to Xfinity. And she even said, I want to stay in Xfinity an extra year. But the sponsorships and GoDaddy pushed her to go up a year. We're talking about, like, at the end of the day, fans just don't really care whether you're grassroots or Nepo baby. It's just about...
no. I mean, the most popular driver is Chase Elliott.
He's a champion.
I mean, yes, but he's a Nepo baby.
Yeah.
Right?
A little bit. But he didn't get
well, not a
gifted
little bit, a lot bit.
Well, yes, but he didn't get gifted
he earned
his
it.
ride either, right?
He earned what he has for himself. But, like, your point is valid for that reason. Because the most popular driver...
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
basically
I'm revisionist
is,
history a little bit. He did become the heir apparent to the 24. He was, in case I know, I can't remember if we talked about this, but Elliott went from Nationwide Series Championship to the 24 car. So I guess
Nationwide
in a way,
is trucks or Nationwide is trucks.
No. It used to be called Xfinity.
That's
Okay,
what
all
Or
right,
it's
Xfinity
Xfinity. It
is.
used to be called
All right.
Nationwide. You're gonna hear me call it
Nationwide, okay,
Busch Series. Nationwide.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Bush
That's why I just had to, because I
nationwide,
wasn't
yeah,
around, so I don't
exactly.
know. I gotta ask when you say
no,
that.
no. He won it for if I'm not mistaken, he won it for Junior Motorsports, and then him and his crew chief came up and took over the 24 car, and then he got his dad's number back after I think Marcus Ambrose had it. Petty, they gave him the 9, and then Byron
Yeah.
took over the 24 at
Yeah.
that point.
People are gonna like what they like. They don't really care how you got there, right? Like it's just it is what it is. But that's not the question is, what would you rather have? I don't know.
I want to win, dude.
I don't know what I'd rather have.
I want to
Yeah,
win.
exactly.
Raja Karuth was getting interviewed this week on pretty big things, not Harrison Burton. I do like you'd
Right.
have to be, especially with the way things are going. And another thing too is what OEM a slot opens up with too, right?
Sure.
Like right now, I want to be on Toyota.
Yes.
I don't want to be in a Chevy car right now. I mean, right now, I would say Trackhouse is the best bet to jump ship to Honda if Honda pops in. Ford is, I mean, the top 14 that's got back-to-back champions isn't even exactly appetizing, right? You get one lame
Penske and RFK aren't going anywhere.
You get one lame advanced auto parts commercial a year at Penske, and that's all they spend on marketing, right? And they'll get you into a haircut for Joey Logano. But right now, so like,
Why you gotta do that? Yo, to Raja, one more thing about Raja. For the first time ever, I'm an avid, and Jeff will laugh at this. I am an avid sports talk radio listener, right? Like avid every single day, all day, right? For the first time ever on local DC sports radio, they did a 20-minute segment on NASCAR. Right. Because of Raja, and had an interview with Raja with the local football guy, JP Finley, right? And it's like, that's what this dude means to this city. Like, there is no racing culture here. It's so weird that Jeff and I ever got into this because no one races in DC. There's no track around here. Richmond's an hour and a half away. So like, that would be like, that's our home track is Richmond, right? And it's just the racing culture in this area got a little bump this week. And I want to credit Raja for that. It was awesome to hear him on the radio, not on a NASCAR podcast, not talking to anybody that the racing circles have ever heard of. Like legit on a radio show. And it was so cool, man. So like it was a blessing for me.
Well, to that same point, that's the thing is like for anything to sidestep Commander's talk at local sports talk radio around here at any time of year. People are going to say, oh, it's free agents. No, like the local sports radio around here will literally talk about the third string long snapper of the Commanders while the Capitals are on playoff runs, while the Nationals are having great runs.
He's not
they
wrong.
Forget DC United ever exists. Like
you don't.
All the other things along those lines, that kind of stuff happens. So to take any time away for the Commanders on those stations, that does say something.
20-minute segment at the top of the show.
Exactly.
Like it was not a small piece. They talked about it and then came back to it later. It was awesome.
To have that be a thing like that is significant in this area. Because like what I was just saying, like that is a consistent gripe around local media in this area in general, like local sports media.
Yeah.
And for this to be the case, for someone like Raja Karuth to go and get a spot like that, like that does say something. But that is generally really cool.
Very cool.
But
props to him.
Moving
Good job,
through
Roger.
that piece, I kind of just like at this point right now, we've seen a lot of movers and shakers coming up the point standings, power rankings, and things along those lines. Just a quick whip around because we're starting to get towards the end of the night here. But one of the things I did want to ask you guys right now, who do you think, like, who is surprising you the most? What's your biggest mover? What's your biggest surprise? And what's your biggest change in your power ranking as we are a few more races into the season now?
I'll take the Fords. I'll take over the Fords. Front row is massively impressive. Like front row, the McDowell and Gilliland have not come out of nowhere. That's not fair, but they are very quickly becoming a force to be reckoned with in the Ford camp, and it's awesome to see. I don't really know the backgrounds and the stories of these guys and all that kind of stuff, but it's really, really cool. And then you flip that coin over, and you have to look at the golden boy of Joey Logano and be like, dude, what is going on with the 22 car, right? It's like, is it bad luck? Is it bad planning? Is it just, 4 races in, Logano is nowhere to be found. So
30th
in
in
terms of the
points.
Fords, dude, yes. And like, I don't remember who I was listening to talk about it, but they were basically saying like 4 races into the year, if you're outside of the playoff points picture, the likelihood that you make it back into that on points is reduced by like 75%, right? When you start talking about playoff likelihood and stuff. So I don't think Logano won't make the playoffs, right? I think he'll make the playoffs, but he is very much in the like, we're 4 races in and he's already in the like Chase Elliott mode from last year. Dude has to win a race. There's not really, pointing in isn't a choice for him anymore. And he's got guys like McDowell and Gilliland pulling the Ford power right now. And like, it's just a weird turnaround for the Fords this year when he's, and then you got Noah Gragson who's shown up this year too. So, yeah, I think the front row guys are really doing well, and Logano needs to step it up for sure.
All right, Finn, what's your biggest movement right now in regards to your power rankings or how you see the season shaping up?
I would say the biggest movement is probably the one I talked a bit about it earlier. I really didn't expect Trackhouse to be as good. I was curious. We talked about Suarez being on the bubble a little bit before he won, and then Ross comes in, and I think that looks like they're just building off of that late season win, um, you know, at the Phoenix race, and that they've got some speed. Moving down though, man, I've got to say the RCR guys and Kyle Busch. I don't think they're unloading with speed. I don't think they're racing with speed, and there's something going on with Kyle Busch and Pit Road right now. I know they've made a ton of moves. It looks like tensions are starting to rise between Kyle and the fact that RCR is not Joe Gibbs. I don't want to say that Kyle's being a prima donna, but what it looks like is they messed up early in the season and they made immediate changes to the pit crew. It looks like the demand is perfection, and it should be for a for Kyle Busch, right? So I just don't think they're racing well right now. And if I had to wager what playoff driver from last year would not be making it this year, Kyle Busch is not off to the greatest start. Don't think he's lost anything. I just think that things aren't clean right now. And it's not like he has any teammate help when it comes to the super speedway races where he could go and get himself a win.
That's a good point. Yeah, because that's one I've kind of been wondering because I expected more of an upswing from Busch, particularly early this season because the way that he had ended things last year, he was hoping to make some improvements. You didn't expect like a ton just, moving to a new team, moving to a new car, having some other factors that were coming into play there. But now, where's it at? Because we're going to see it now. Things could heat up there towards the end of the season. He had a good run in Atlanta. The other tracks, it's really been, it hasn't quite been what we've expected to see. We'll see how that goes, but I think that's definitely understandable. I think so for me, right now, there's a couple factors or at least predictions on this end that one, I love what Truex is doing right now. I, yeah, sure, some folks may be talking about it a little bit, but I think he's flying just enough under the radar that he is not on everybody's, target list right now. But Truex is number 3 in the points. He's been running halfway decent. He's got 2 top 10s. He's having a good season start. We'll see if it sustains through the rest of the year. For me, at this point right now, Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell, I mean, we're already watching them leapfrog guys in the points rankings. So far, Tyler Reddick has been one of the faster cars on the track pretty consistently in the short amount of races we've had this year. So, I mean, at this point, I expect Tyler Reddick to make his way up to the top 5 in points probably before the summer really gets underway with the way that he's running. Now, it's going to depend on what results do. So to me, that's one of the bigger movers, as far as movers and shakers go. We're going to see Tyler Reddick continue to propel himself up the standings. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, at this point, the standings, it's Toyotas, bow ties, and Ryan Blaney. That's what, that's what's there. But as we've seen on the on-track performance, that's going to change.
For sure.
As things shake out, the points are going to start evening themselves out, and some of the dirt's going to make its way out in the wash. So at this point, I think that's going to wrap it for us this week. We will be back with you guys in, I think it's 3 weeks, guys. It's just under a month, I believe. We'll be back with you guys after Richmond to go over the excitement from Bristol, Coda, and Richmond. Corey and I will definitely have some content for you as we go out to the track and get some more documentation of the Richmond experience. And we'll be sure to have that. So please check out our Twitter and our TikTok for that information. We will have some vids and some pics up for you. That will be at intwreckpod. That's at INTWRECKPOD. And with that, enjoy the races for the next couple of weeks, everybody. See y'all soon.
See you.
There you go.